Hi, this is Lee from Wise Up, and thanks for joining us for this session on first impressions. Obviously, for Wise Up, we're looking at employability, so making a really good first impression in an interview setting to enable you to secure that job, which is going to get your career moving in the direction that you want it to. But of course, throughout our whole lives, we're making first impressions all the time on people that we meet. Think, for example, when you first went to your new school, or perhaps your college or your sixth form or your university, and you met a load of new students and new friends you hadn't met before. You'd have met new teachers, new staff in the educational setting that you were in. When we move house, we meet new neighbours and the people in our street. And perhaps when we get a bit older and we meet a romantic interest and we go on a date for the first time, we certainly want to make a good first impression then. If we make a good impression and we get off on the right foot, things can go really, really well for us. If we make a bad first impression and we get off on the wrong foot, it can take a long time to put things right, if it's possible at all. So it's really important to know the skills involved in making a good first impression. Okay, so to start off, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. This is Bob. Bob is 42 years old, and I'd like you to think, what job does Bob do? What is he employed as? Now, when we ask this question in a classroom, in an A-level class, etc., we get an awful lot of different responses back. Many people say that Bob looks like quite a strong, muscular man. Perhaps he works as a builder or a truck driver or a carpenter, things like that. People often look at Bob's tattoos and say he's obviously very into his tattoos. Perhaps he's a tattoo artist or something of that description. Lots of different things. We do occasionally have people say, well, we can't tell from the photograph, but most people say Bob looks like he's in a physical manual job based on this picture. And often people are surprised when we actually say, in fact, Bob is a very successful doctor, a very successful surgeon. Okay, and that demonstrates that from the first picture that we had, we were making judgments about Bob just based on that picture. We didn't really know much about him. Okay, let me introduce you to some more people. So let's call the gentleman on the left, let's call him Clive. The gentleman on the right, let's call him Dave. Okay, so Clive and Dave, and they both sell second-hand cars. Now I want you to imagine that you've got £10,000 sitting in your bank account and you're off to buy your first ever car. And this is a car which you're going to obviously enjoy driving. It's a car that's going to perhaps get you to work or to university and back again safely. You might take holidays in it. You might take friends for trips in your car. You're really excited about that. And you've got £10,000 to spend. Now, which of these two gentlemen are you going to spend your money with and why? Again, when we ask this in a group setting, generally people say that they will spend their money with Dave on the right there, stretching out his hand to shake our hand. And there's lots of reasons for this, okay? Dave is obviously dressed smartly today. He's got a tie on, he's got a nice clean suit on, he's done his hair, but also his body language. He's got a smile, he's got an open expression on his face, he's offering his hand to us in friendship. And all of these things are giving us the subconscious message that there's a person here who we're going to like and who we're going to trust with our money. Whereas Clive on the left, yes, is also smiling, but he doesn't look quite as well turned out as the other gentleman. His shirt looks crumpled. His hair is perhaps not as well maintained. All of these different things, his body language as well. He's got hunched shoulders, sticking his thumbs up. Looks like perhaps quite a pleasant gentleman, but it's giving us these signals subconsciously that perhaps we wouldn't trust him as much to sell us a machine that's going to keep us safe on the road. We're not perhaps going to trust him as much with our £10,000. Now, he may be a very trustworthy car salesman. However, the signals that he's giving us just from that initial impression are not helping him to win our business, are not helping him to sell us that car. So we're not saying that this person is more or less trustworthy, but that initial first impression can have a big impact on the decisions that we make. Let's explore this a little bit more. I'd like you to imagine that you are a business owner. You started this business from scratch and you've grown it up into quite a good business, and you've worked very hard for the last 10 years growing this business. And you're taking on a new member of the team. And you've narrowed it down to these three individuals: the gentleman on the left with glasses, the gentleman in the middle, and the lady on the right. And you've got to offer one of these three people a second interview. Which of these three people would you choose? Now, again, we don't know anything about these individuals from this picture at all. They might all be eminently qualified, they might get on very well with the team, but again, they're not all giving themselves the best possible chance to secure that second interview and potentially that job. So the gentleman on the left with the glasses, you can see he's looking a bit tense, perhaps a bit sweaty. Now that's understandable. Interviews can be nerve-wracking experiences, but also he's leant forward. He's got his shoulders hunched. He's got his hands clasped on the table, and his body language subconsciously is telling us that he's leaning forward into our space. That comes across as a bit aggressive. Now he probably isn't an aggressive gentleman, but his body language is not putting him in the best position to win our trust and win our favour with his first impression. The gentleman sat next to him, again, he may be very, very good at the job. He might be a great fit for the team, but he's slumped back in his chair. He's looking wistfully at the table. He's got his hand on his face, and he's looking a bit bored and disinterested. Again, perhaps he's really tired, perhaps he's really nervous. Perhaps he's tired, perhaps he's been up all night preparing for the interview. But again, he's not put himself in the best position because his body language is telling us perhaps he's not very interested, perhaps he's not very focused on the task at hand. And finally, the lady on the right, you can see again, she's got that open face with that smile, her shoulders are back, she's shaking hands, she's got an open posture. And for her, she's giving all of the signals to us that she's going to be an appropriate and efficient person perhaps to join our team. Now, she may be a bag of nerves. She may or may not have the qualifications that one of the other interviewees have. We don't know. But what she is doing is giving herself the best chance by using her body language and her first impression to make us think this is somebody perhaps who we may be keen to have joining our team. All of this information is coming across to us subliminally. They're not saying it, they're just, their body language, the way they're dressed, their pose is just communicating things to us without us even really realizing it. An interviewer will make these kinds of judgments without even realizing at the front of their mind that they are doing so. Okay, so first impressions are really important and can make a big difference. Do you know how long it takes to make a first impression? Actually takes on average 7 seconds. So if you're thinking about an interview, by the time you've walked into the room, perhaps shaken their hand and taken a seat, within that first 7 seconds, the interviewers have already made an impression about who you are in that short space of time. 55% of the first impression is based upon your appearance. Now, we may not like that statistic, we may not think it's fair, but it is true. It's been proven by study after study, time and time again. And if we know that, we can make decisions to give ourselves the best possible chance of making a good first impression by ensuring that our appearance is appropriate to the role that we're going for. Again, we've spoken about handshakes a little bit already. A weak handshake is not good. What it conveys, again, subconsciously, is shyness or lack of commitment. Okay, so a weak handshake is not good. So practice and prepare your handshake. It may sound like a silly thing to do, but practice at home with your loved ones. Practice with a friend. Get good at giving a good handshake. Okay. Don't lay your hands on the table. As we saw in that previous exercise with the interviewees, it can come across as controlling, and we don't want to give that impression. Often we can clasp our hands and lean forward when we feel nervous, but what we're communicating to the interviewer is that we're leaning into the personal space, we're possessing the table by putting our hands on it. So that's really a no-no in terms of making a good first impression. And maintain eye contact. This shows confidence. It shows that you feel confident in yourself and in the conversation that you're having and giving a good account of yourself. On the flip side of that, don't stare at them continuously without blinking or looking away at all, because this can actually come across as very weird, very aggressive, very uncomfortable for the interviewer. So eye contact, yes. Staring, no. Okay? And try your best not to tap or fidget. Don't pull at your hair, don't pull at your clothes, don't wobble your feet as you're sat there at the table. Again, these are all things that people do when they feel nervous, but what it's telling that interviewer is perhaps they might be sitting across the office from you 5 days a week for the next 5 years. Do they want to be sat across from somebody who's constantly tapping the table or fidgeting with their hair, etc.? They're going to find that annoying. So do your best to control those nervous twitches. Okay, mobile phones. Don't leave it on the table. It should be turned off, not on silent. It should be turned off and in your bag or in your pocket, entirely out of the way. If we leave our tables on the, even if it's off, if we leave it on the table, then our phone is communicating that we've got a divided focus. We're not giving full attention to the interviewer. We're actually thinking, oh, perhaps our phone might ring, or I might get a message I might want to look at. Even if it's off, we're communicating that we've got a divided focus. So turn it off, pop it in your bag. Okay. And then finally, don't run late. Okay, this is going to communicate to interviewers that you are unreliable and disorganized. So plan the journey ahead. Run the journey ahead once or twice. If you're going to a face-to-face interview, we always say you should arrive 10 minutes early into the building. However, you should arrive in the area of the building 30 minutes early. Okay, so get there 30 minutes early, find somewhere to buy a coffee, perhaps use a bathroom somewhere if you need to, gather your thoughts, catch your breath, read a newspaper or something, and then walk into the building 10 minutes ahead of your interview time. Now, it might be a journey that you do every single week on a Saturday at 3 in the afternoon, so you know exactly how much time it takes to get there. But the traffic may be different at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. There might be additional buses, there might be people getting to school or to work. It might slow the traffic down. So don't just assume you know how long it takes. Actually, the week before your interview, do the journey at the same time so you know what's going to happen. So plan ahead, and arrive in the area half an hour early, and arrive to your interview, to the reception 10 minutes before 10 minutes before your interview time is due to start. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a short video, and in this video you're going to see a lady come to an office for an interview, and what I want you to do is just watch and make a mental note or notes on a piece of paper, any faults that you can see, any mistakes that this lady makes for her interview, and we will go over them together afterwards.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I've got a meeting at 12 o'clock.
All right, okay, it's about 12:30. Are you let them know that you're running late?
No, because I've been stuck on the tube.
Okay, who are you here to see?
Michelle?
Okay, surname?
My surname? Fulham.
No, the consultant.
Oh, I don't have a surname.
Okay, do you want to take a seat for me? I'll have a look for
Yep.
for you.
Do you know how long she's going to be? 'Cause I've actually got another meeting in an hour.
I don't know, I just need to find out who it is and I'll give them a call and I'll let you know.
Well, you know, there's nothing I can do about it, is there really? I mean, I've got to just, oh look, okay, I'm in an interview. Alright, yeah, see you later, bye.
Hayley. Hello,
Hi.
Hayley Fuller. Nice
Hi.
to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to come over and meet with me today. I'm not going to keep you very long. I just really want to talk through a few points on your CV so that we can make an assessment as to whether we bring you in for a second round meeting. All right. So, what's prompting you to look for a new role at the moment? What are your reasons for leaving your current employer?
I just don't like it.
You don't like it?
It's not for me.
What don't you like particularly about the role?
The office I work in is pretty disgusting.
Disgusting?
Yeah.
What do you mean by disgusting?
Well, just not very nice, a bit grotty.
A bit grotty, okay.
Yeah.
And what about the actual work, the day-to-day activities that you do, if putting that to one side?
It's just really boring. I mean, I sit there all day just like doing nothing really, making tea, expenses, filing, photocopying. I mean,
Is this different to what you were told you were going to be doing when you signed up for the role, or?
yeah, I didn't even see a job spec.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right, moving on. You've been in your last 2 roles only for a short time, approximately a year each. Is there a particular reason for that?
Just didn't like them either.
No? No. Again, what didn't you like about it? It's very important for me to understand what you didn't like about your other roles, because there could be similarities with this role that we're looking to recruit.
Well, the one before the one I'm in now, I didn't really get on with the girls there. Had a bit,
Right.
a bit of a personality clash with them.
Okay. Did you not try and do anything about that? Because it's quite important to get on with your work colleagues, isn't it?
Well, I spoke to HR and made a complaint about a few of them.
Made a complaint. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fine. And again, sort of, what would you say your strengths are, Hayley? I mean, do you have strengths? Is there something that you can tell me that sort of distinguishes you over and above other people in the teams? And
Yeah.
things that you do differently.
I think I'm quite. Hang on. Hi. Yeah. No, listen, I've got to go. I'm in an interview. Oh, I'll meet you tonight at 6. Okay, bye.
Okay. So finally, anyway, what do you think you can bring to my company and to this particular role?
Well, it's pretty much all on my CV, isn't it? I mean, you can
Well,
see
it
there
is,
what I've
Hayley,
done.
but I'd like you to talk me through it, if that's okay.
Well, I mean, I think I'm very, I've got great attention to detail.
Right.
I'm very personable. I get on with everybody. I just think that, anyone would want to employ me, basically.
Okay. It's interesting that you say that you get on with everybody, because the reason for leaving your last role was that you had a personality clash with somebody.
It wasn't
so-
mine. It was them.
Oh,
It wasn't
okay.
me.
Okay.
It wasn't anything to do with me. It was them.
Okay, fine. Well, look, thank you for taking the time to come in and meet with me today, and I'll get my assistant to give you a call and follow up, all right? But I wish you all the best. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Bye-bye.
So what do you think? Do you think she got the job? No, I think she probably didn't. That could almost have been a workshop on how not to do it. So let's go through together some of the faults and see if you got any of the ones that are going to come up on the screen here. So immediately she was late. She was half an hour late, which, as we said before, is an absolute no-no when it comes to interviews. And she didn't phone ahead. If something absolutely out of your control happens and you're running late for your interview, you must call ahead to give you any chance of maintaining that interview slot and giving you any chance of still hoping to secure that job. Okay, she didn't know the name of the person she was seeing. Do a bit of research before you go. Find out if it's not on the email or on the letter you received to invite you for the interview. Call and say, oh, hi, I've got an interview on Tuesday at 9. Who am I meeting, please? Just call ahead, 5 minutes of preparation, and then when you arrive, you can ask for them by name. You're much more prepared, you feel more settled and confident, and they feel happy that you are able to know who you're due to see. When she was waiting at the reception, she was impatient. She threw her bag down. She slumped in the chair, giving all really bad impression to the receptionist. And she was talking on the phone in the interview room while she was waiting for her interviewer to arrive. Again, it just shows rudeness. She's already kept them waiting half an hour, and then she keeps them waiting for a few more moments when they enter the room. So, when you arrive for your interview, your phone needs to be off and in your bag. Don't turn it on again until you've left the building. Okay, so she didn't stand up to greet the interviewer. That's a really big problem. You need to stand up. You need to shake hands, offer your hand for a handshake. It just shows respect when somebody enters the room. Going on to what she said during the interview, the first thing she did was complained about her last employer and the other people there. What your interviewer is going to think if you start doing that is, well, if they've spent the last 6 months complaining about their last employer, are they going to spend the next 6 months complaining about me if I employ them? They don't want to employ somebody who's going to potentially cause a problem or cause upset in their team. They want somebody who's going to come in and add something and make things better, easier, make things grow. They don't want to bring somebody in who's going to be complaining all the time and causing lots of challenges. She wasn't proactive in finding work, and she was very clear about that in her interview. Again, employers want somebody who is proactive and they don't have to sort of micromanage all the time. She was belittling her previous jobs, and she didn't stay in jobs for a very long time. Now, sometimes it can't be helped if we need to move on from jobs for a variety of reasons, moving locations, etc. But again, we want to, if we can, stay at jobs for a decent amount of time, because as soon as an employer looks at a CV and sees that perhaps I've had 3 jobs in the last year, they're going to think this person doesn't really stay very long. Am I going to spend the money to take this person on board, train them up to do the job, train all my other employees to work alongside them, etc., etc., all that time and effort and resource, and then after 3 or 6 months they might leave? An employer's not likely to make that decision. So show that you've got staying power, show that you've got that resilience by staying at jobs for a reasonable amount of time. And she didn't get on with her previous workmates, and she put in complaints to HR. Again, as an employer will be thinking, goodness, if I take this person on, are they going to not get on with people here? Are they going to give us a lot of headaches and a lot of paperwork by complaining to HR about our staff? Are they going to fit in? Are they going to be a team player? So again, that's a really big problem. And then if it wasn't bad enough, her phone went off in the interview and she answered it. In the very unlikely event that you forget to turn your phone off and it accidentally goes off, all you can do is say, I'm so sorry. Don't answer it. Press the button and turn it off there and then, and just apologise, just put it down to nerves. But answering the phone during the interview is a surefire way to make sure that you don't get that job. So make sure that phone is off. Her answers were inconsistent. She said she always gets on with everybody, and then she didn't get on with her previous workmates. And the employer is thinking, can I trust what this person says? And finally, she blames others. She wasn't taking any personal responsibility. Everything was everybody else's fault. So again, that's a bit of a workshop in how not to do it, okay? A bit of preparation, a bit of planning ahead, turning the phone off and thinking about your answers will put you in good stead to make a great impression, unlike the lady in that video. Of course, now a lot of interviews are being carried out online since the pandemic, and they've carried on after that. So if you've got an online interview, test your tech. Make sure your laptop or your iPad or whatever you're using is working. Check the video camera is working. Check the audio is working. Have a video call with a friend or a family member. Just check that they can see you. Check the background behind you looks appropriate for the interview. All those things, so that you don't get into the interview and have technical problems. Make sure you're in a distraction-free area. So you might have a spare room. You might ask everybody to clear out of the living room and leave it to you, and make sure they don't come in until you tell them. You don't want dogs and cats and family members or the TV on in the background. That's not going to come across well, and your prospective employer is not going to be impressed if you've got lots of noise and distraction going on in the background during your interview. Okay, still dress smartly and appropriately. Okay, they will take you more seriously. Just because you're sat at home doesn't mean you can do the interview in a t-shirt or in your pajamas. Okay, and there's often the joke about having a shirt and a tie on and then your pajama bottoms underneath. If they ask you during the interview, oh, could you just please go and grab that piece of paperwork we sent you, and you need to stand up and go and get it, and they see your stripy or your spotty pajama bottoms, again, they're not going to take you very seriously. So if you're having an online interview, dress as if you're going to the interview down at their offices. Again, it's going to make you feel more professional. They're going to take you more seriously. Okay, now be on time, but don't be early. For the in-person interviews, we said arrive 10 minutes early, but for an online interview, you want to click connect about 30 seconds to 15 seconds before your interview time. The likelihood is they've got a run of interviews and they will have just finished a previous interview before you, and they'll be discussing that together as a team before your time. If you come in early, you're immediately causing them a bit of a problem. They're on the back foot, and it's not giving a good impression of you. So don't be more than 30 seconds ahead of your interview time. Have some questions written down. Interviewers like to know that you've thought seriously about the job, and if you have thought seriously about the job, you'll have some questions. They might be about the career progression. They might be about the working arrangements, working from home, working from the office. They might be about the product the company is making. They might be about any number of things. But get onto their website, do a bit of research, and have some questions prepared. And finally, make sure that you're speaking slowly. Your internet connection perhaps may drop out, so you need to give them every chance to understand what you're saying. So speak more slowly than you naturally would It may feel a bit awkward, but actually it comes across very well. And if you have internet problems, then it will give you a buffer to enable to keep communicating with them clearly. Really, to finish off, a good foundation, a good impression, a good first impression is like a good, solid, strong foundation of a building. If you have a good, solid foundation, you can build as high as you like. You can build as big as you like. You can have lots of room to grow. That is what a good first impression does for you in terms of your career. If you get off on the wrong foot, it's like having a bad foundation. And we all know that if the foundations are bad, everything built on top of it is going to topple over. Okay, so it really is worth giving some thought to how you make a really good first impression. Thank you for going through this session with me. I hope you found it helpful. We've got a lot more resources on our website, which you can see in front of you there. And also you can follow us on Twitter and communicate with us there. Thanks for listening. We hope to speak to you again soon.